Welcome back to Human Frequency. I'm Rebecca.
I'm Philip.
And this week, we're going to talk about a subject that is, is big in a lot of people's lives. But before we get into the main topic of our podcast, we wanted to talk to you guys about what we did this weekend. We celebrated Philip's 51st birthday. And happy birthday to him. And we did that by heading down to Carmel, California, which if you're familiar with California at all, then it's close to like Monterey, south of Santa Cruz, just south of Monterey. Beautiful little town. It's called Carmel by the Sea. We got to spend a couple of days there at a really nice place that was gifted to us, actually. So it was really nice to be able to hang out there. We had a lot of experiences. We walked through Point Lobos State Park, which was incredible.
Which is a must do. If you're in that area, we highly recommend you guys go and do the hike.
Yeah.
And do the whole hike too. Don't do the half one. That doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, definitely. Because you get to see all of the peaks. You get to see all these beautiful spots and stand on top of these beautiful spots along the ocean. It's incredible. And there's so many people out there just enjoying nature, which was really nice to see too. Like so many people just taking advantage of beautiful weather and nature. And so through that, going away is often hard for us as a couple because we have a dog and obviously need to find someone to care for her. And this time we were lucky that our daughter was in town. She's kind of our go-to dog sitter if we can, because she's, does the job well and she stays in our house and, she's kind of likes to maybe make a little extra money on the side too.
Yes, she's not doing it for free. She is being compensated.
She would do it for free, but we just think it's, nice little extra change for her.
It is fair.
Yeah. And so that kind of leads me to like our topic for today, which is parenting. And so I'm going to let you take over as to like what our topic is going to look like today and kind of how we're going to go about this.
It's going to be a nice topic to talk about. I'm particularly want to do it because to get your perspective on what it's like to be a stepmom to grown kids. And in our last episode, Rebecca gave an answer about parenting, and we both felt it was necessary to expand on what parenting is, at least in our opinion. There is also this belief that parenting is extremely difficult. And that's not to say it is not difficult. And that's not to say it can't feel like a thankless job at times. The fact that people think it's a job to me is just crazy. So we thought we should make this next episode on parenting. Okay. Oh, and by the way, if you guys ever go to Carmel, make sure you bring a lot of money. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And the food was all right, but because of how much you have to pay for the food, it made the food not worth what you had to pay for it. For example, we got coconut shrimp, I think it was, $16. They gave us 4 jumbo shrimp. I was obviously annoyed, because I'm talking about it still. So on with parenting.
Bring money.
Yeah, bring money if you go to Carmel by the Sea. Parenting. This is one of the most hotly debated topics in the United States because there's so many opinions on what makes a good parent, what makes a bad parent. And of course, we cannot consider the social stigma that goes with when you publicly let someone know what your view of being a parent is like.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of them may disagree and some of them may agree. But last week you had a really good point. You said about your experience about parenting. If you want to share that with us for the people who didn't see the first
yeah, I'm trying to remember
podcast.
what I said. Do you remember what I was talking about?
It was more the assumption by some people that parenting is extremely hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, parenting for me looks different because I didn't have any bio children. So I wasn't, given the opportunity by this universe to, have my own children, not my own, to have biological children. And so my parenting experience came almost 12 years ago when I met you. And our daughters were much younger then, 12 years younger. So they were, just, kids. They were kids. I think our oldest was maybe 12. She was a very independent 12, but she was 12 years old. And so at that time it was like, okay, I'm not going to have my own kids. I say my own biological children. But I have an opportunity to mother 3 amazing girls. And thank you for that opportunity, because, without you allowing me to be in their lives, I wouldn't have that opportunity. But it looks a lot different as a step parent. There's a way different balance. There's so many different dynamics to navigate when you're a step parent. Boundaries and balance and, it's a delicate dance, kind of, in my opinion.
Can you give us one example of a delicate dance to which you mentioned?
I think it's, it's kind of like a general example.
Okay.
It's like the word mom, a title. Especially when you've never heard that before, like from a biological child. Those words carry a lot of value and a lot of weight. But at the same time, like, you don't want to force somebody to call you something, right? And I'm not their mom, but I play a motherly role to them. And so for me, it was more of an emotional piece of having to like realize that they could just call me Rebecca, and I'm okay with that until they decide that maybe I have a different name, like maybe when they have kids, their kids will call me some sort of grandma name, and then that becomes a nickname. And it's more like a general, like, kind of balance of making sure that they feel loved and supported and not forced into loving me, into accepting me. I want them to accept me and love me because I give them that support. I give them that love. I'm there for them in that way, not because they're being forced to, I think a lot of times people get into second relationships and when they have kids, and it's like, oh, well, you have to call him dad now because he's playing that role in your life. And it's like, yeah, but that's not my dad, I didn't even call my own biological father my dad because he didn't play that role in my life, like my whole life. So, I think that's the balance of just trying to figure out how to make sure that they feel safe and supported and loved, but also, like remembering my own place and kind of dealing with that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying you give them their space while you are remaining patient for them to arrive at that step where they feel comfortably in their own skin, approaching you and talking to you as their biological mom, or as they would with their biological mom, which I thought was always really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Because they never felt forced to have to do this. It was their choice to make.
Yeah. But it came with a lot of pain because I many times have cried to you, not because of their lack of wanting to do that, but because of the hole in my heart. Do you know what I mean? Because it was like I was not comparing, but I was feeling like, gosh, I want to be that for someone. I want to hear that from someone. I want to hear that, when the girls call you and say like, hey, dad, and I will not ever hear, hey, mom, and those things I think people take for granted in parenting. They just like, oh, this is what parents get, you get to hear, mom, look at me, mom, look at me. And that may seem so insignificant to some people, like, and annoying even, I see parents get annoyed by it, and I'm just thinking like, gosh, like, you have no idea how impactful that is on somebody who hasn't or will never experience that. So it's like this, quelling my own feelings and my own sadness about my own loss and grief, while also creating that space for them to be able to like come to me when they're ready to have those conversations, or when they need somebody. Oh, hey, what's up, girl?
This is our dog Leela trying to get into the show.
Cameo!
This reminds me of something the famous tennis player said, Billie Jean King. She said pressure is a privilege. Being a parent is a privilege. It's not a right.
Yeah.
And I do believe some parents forget how blessed they are
Yeah.
to hear those words,
Yeah.
mom, or to hear those words, dad,
Yeah.
or to be the facilitator of that kid's smile or that kid happiness and joy. Because, like you said, a lot of people don't have the opportunity to experience those things.
Yeah.
But how has being a stepmom affected you personally, like psychologically?
It's been great. I love it. I love the moments that that I do get to feel that motherly feeling with them, and build that connection. And it has helped me to grow, I think, as a person. I've relied on you a lot for, teaching me like parenting tips, because it's all new for me. And it's not something that when I say new, I mean 12 years, but still it's a learned thing,
Yeah.
It's not something that it comes with a manual. Luckily, you've been a great manual, because I've learned, a lot. And I also have been able to see myself differently, and see myself in what roles I play in their life, and, what roles they play in mine, because that's also important, especially as they age, like how do we fulfill each other? So I think for me, it's just helped me grow as a person,
Okay, wow, cool.
Yeah.
I've always thought as parenting as most people may think how it's something bad, how it's something hard, how it's something challenging, and indeed it does come with some of its challenge, but it's such a blessing
Yeah.
to be able to do it, and watching you take on that role that honestly you were never expecting to take on, because whoever is,
Yeah.
I've come to appreciate what you bring to the table, because even though I think I have a good relationship with all of my kids, they don't always tell me everything. Oh, and by the way, if you think your kids tell you everything, then you are naive. They don't.
No.
They probably won't only tell you like 1% of the things.
Yeah.
But to see you take on that role in such a masterful way was really, really awesome.
Thank
It was
you.
really eye-opening to see you do that, especially coming from someone with your background.
Thank you. Well, and I'm an only child too,
Yes.
so that even plays a different role. You come from a family of eight
There are 8 of us.
children. I'm an only child. I have 2 half brothers who I love dearly, who I didn't spend a lot of time with growing up. So I can't really say that like my adolescence was full of like banter and play with siblings, but I think that also plays a role, because our girls have their own relationships
they
that
do.
are a dynamic that are so different, and play a role into how we communicate with them too. So it's been interesting. It's kind of like every time something happens, it's like, a little shock to the system kind of, but it just wakes me up a little bit, and I just learn from it, so it's been, I could not feel about parenting right now the way I feel if I hadn't learned from you, because we've had many talks where I remember one thing you said to me that was so impactful in my parenting journey, which was, I think I was kind of getting like a little, like, not nitpicky, but like trying to like get the girls what we wanted them to do, right? And I remember you saying, sometimes you have to use a scalpel instead of like a hacksaw or something
Or
like that. I'm paraphrasing.
Ratchet
but
or
a hatchet,
hatchet,
don't hack at it. Sometimes you have to use a scalpel. And I think a big part of what was meant by that had to do with like choosing your battles and like, what's the most important thing here? Like, figure this out, and be a little bit more crafty about it, a little slower, a little more thoughtful. And that moment of talking to you with that really helped me to kind of like, okay, take a step back, take a deep breath, analyze the situation, get all the moving pieces and figure out what they are. And then, then we decide how to move forward.
Be a lot more strategic.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say. Well, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
But I think like I said, it all kind of came from, learning from you. And I'm trying to figure out like where you got this whole, your philosophy on parenting. Like it's some people would say like, in the younger years, pretty intense and
Yes.
and military like, and then it's kind of morphed into a different type of parenting as
Yeah.
they've aged, and you never waver in how you parent. Like you always seem like you are on this path of this is what I'm going to do, and
Yeah.
that's how it's going to be done.
In my view, parenting has three important pillars. And I didn't realize I was doing this until after they were born. It's the type of parent you want to be, what type of kids you want to raise, and what you need to do to get the type of kids you want to raise. And I believe those are the three most important things that every new parent or someone who wants to be a parent should ask themselves, because those questions allow you to take a path that you otherwise would not take, and it also shapes how you interact with your kids as you try to raise them into the type of individuals you want them to be. I also don't significantly parent for the present. For example, if the kids they came and they said, oh, da, 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 or they did something that is absolutely wrong. When I am correcting them, I'm not only thinking about teaching them a lesson right now, but I'm thinking about how what I'm about to tell them will age 10 or 20 years down the road.
Yeah, I've noticed you do that. You've done that the entire time I've been with you. Like you'll say something to them and I'm like, whoa. And you're like, just wait 10 years.
Yeah.
They're going to remember this moment.
Yes.
They're going to remember what I said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always parent for the future. And it's one of the biggest mistakes parenting make. They only parent for the present. I also draw a lot from my own experience as a kid. Because as much as new parents like to think that what their kid is doing is somewhat revolutionary, it's not. The same thing the kid is doing in 2025 is the same thing they did in 1400 BC or CE or whatever you call it. They have the same questions, they have the same curiosity, and they also think that their parents were stupid and they can get one over on their parent. Okay. And finally, I'm never concerned about whether or not my kids like me, love me, hate me, or want to be around me. My goal is always singular: to raise them to be an asset to society and not a liability. And the only way to do that is to not give them breaks. From the time they do something wrong, you step in and you fix it on the spot. Yes, when I was with the kid's mom, they thought I was harsh. I was uncaring. I was just a mean person. But now I look at the adults they have become, and with the exceptions of some minor behavioral issues that's ongoing, for the most part, they have grown up to be pretty good people.
Yeah.
They are kind, caring, loving. And no, that's not to say that they still don't have their challenging issues. They most certainly do. But
which is
human, which is normal. Everyone goes through those.
It's a growth cycle.
Those troubling phases where you're like, damn it, could you just get over this really, really quick? But what I have learned is, it doesn't matter how old they get, you always end up being their parents. You still their parent. Our oldest is about to be 25, and she's still just to me like a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
But she is 25 years old.
Oh, I wish I could have seen her at 3.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I have to make that that determination sometimes as to when do I intervene when I see her making a choice that is questionable, and when do I step back and watch that choice play out, knowing that it's probably not going to play out the way they wanted to play out. That's one of the most difficult things about being parenting.
Yeah, and the shift from being able to tell them what to do and how to do it to, they're making their own decisions now. Once they're adults, they're still your kids, and they might need you more as adults than they really did as kids. Not like the fundamentals, like feed me and house me and things like that, but emotionally and mentally, especially our generation of children, because as our daughter said this evening when she left, she says, I feel like my generation is full of anxiety. And so parenting these adult children is a different kind of feel than parenting them when they were little and you just made them some dinner and, housed them and, changed their clothes. But it's that also shift of parenting because it's different. You know, it's more hands off. It's more like, okay, let's see if this blows up in their face, or wow, that worked out really well for them, So it's kind of cool because you see them also morph into an adult, you know.
And I'm glad you mentioned that where your parenting shift, and this is really key, in my opinion, to being a successful parent. A majority of parents make the mistake of being the same parent they were when the kid was 3 years old, being the same parent when the kid is 25.
Yep.
And this caused a lot of rift between parent and kid because the kid is all grown up. There is a desire for self-reliance, and the parent is still interacting with the child as if he or she is 3 years old. So one of the most important things I did, in addition to the rest that I mentioned, is to grow as a parent as my kids grow.
Yeah.
I started by, first there was no democracy. Whatever I say goes,
Right.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And as they got older, I introduced them to choice. Like, wait, you have a choice here. Or you can ask why, and I will tell you why. Yeah? And then once you introduce them to choice, you then tell them, hey, if you choose this, this is what's going to happen. Hey, if you choose this, this may not happen. Yeah? So my role and parents' role should transform from one of dictatorship to one of democratic, where we're going to make these choices together, but you are making 99.1% of it. I am just here as a
Facilitator.
suggestion
Yeah.
or a facilitator. I'm just here to say yay or nay. And then they get to a point where you don't say anything at all. But that is a really good point. You need to be a transitioning parent. You can't be stuck dealing with a 25-year-old as if the 25-year-old is a 3-year-old.
Well, and I think a place where that comes from being a viewer of your parenting, is trust in your kids and yourself. Because one of the things that you've always talked about is that you 100% with conviction can say that you have done everything in your power to help them to become these human beings and to make good decisions. Therefore, you trust them and their decision making. And we were watching a show last night, one of Gordon Ramsay's shows, where he's coming into a kitchen or whatever, and the dad was in his 70s and the son was like in his 40s. And there was this dynamic happening where the dad didn't want to let go of this restaurant to get handed down to his son, even though his son was probably more capable than the dad, right? But what I saw was like, he didn't trust him.
That's
and
right.
he didn't trust himself that he had prepared his son for
Right.
this.
Yes.
And it was like, okay, but you're in your 70s. And even Gordon Ramsay was like, dude, he's 45 now. Like, it's time to, hand over the reins. Like, you've prepared him. And so I think it's this level of confidence in your parenting and like knowing that you're saying everything you need to say. you know, I'm as a stepmom, I have had to kind of toe the line a little bit and back off a little bit when it comes to confrontation with the kids, because you usually take that piece on. I'm a support role in that, so I am part of the conversation, but it's usually kind of a secondary support role, which is fine. That's how it should be. They've known you their entire life. They haven't known me as long, so they don't know me as well. However, I'm pretty vocal if I, if I want to know something or I believe something. I have a very good intuition when it comes to our kids. I know when something's up. Usually, sometimes before you do, I kind of have an idea of what's going on, but I will usually say something to you before I say something to them. And then, we kind of go from there. But I think it's like confidence in, how you're going to approach them. And that's what I've learned from you is like the scalpel thing, that makes you more confident because you're using a strategy to, get the result you want. Not necessarily
Right.
because that isn't going to get you the right result.
Yeah.
You want a different result, and that means you have to do something different and maybe unconventional at times,
You made two good points there. One is trust, and two is the thing. I have always felt if I don't have trust and confidence that my kids will make the right choice, I failed as a parent.
Yeah.
So if you are a parent out there and you don't trust your kids or you don't have confidence in your kids, you have failed them. Because I am absolutely sure that I did, as you have stated, I did everything possible to give my kids or our kids the knowledge they need to make good choices.
Now that doesn't mean they're not going to lie to your face.
Oh yeah. This doesn't lie.
They will lie to your face. Bold-faced lie.
Yes.
So trust it's like this weird kind of thing, right? Because you get to the point where like, okay, well, I might not trust what they just said, right? But the funny part about that is if you trust your parenting, then you know that lie is going to come around and bite them in the ass.
Always does.
It does. And then they look at us like, oh, how did you guys know? Oh, well, it was pretty obvious.
And that's the other thing about developing trust with them. One, it has to be done early, and two, it has to be done with honesty. And once you do those two things, even when they are dishonest with you, they feel really guilty and they eventually will tell you on their own, or they will indirectly spill the beans during a conversation, and you go, oh, yeah, we kind of knew that already. Well,
and we don't freak out on them.
No.
We're a very transparent household. So as soon as we know something, it's like, we're not like yelling types. We don't like get into loud arguments. Sometimes if, things have gone a little far, there's been times where Philip's raised his voice and got a little pissed or whatever. And I think I've probably done the same to each of our girls at least once. But it's passion. It's more like, come on,
And that goes to your point about always nagging them.
Yeah.
See, you don't, the easiest way to become an ineffective parent, or rather an ineffective leader of any kind, is to be nagging.
Right.
Because when you do that, the person that you're interacting with say, oh yeah, it's just so and so, they always do that. All of a sudden you have lost your authority to influence that person to behave in a manner you may believe is beneficial to them.
Yeah.
So letting them make their mistakes and don't jump on them oh, you did that, oh, you did that, oh, you did that, oh, you did that. It builds that trust, but it also maintain your authority to advise them, as opposed to diluting it by always picking on them, because that only drives them away from you.
Yeah.
And it also gives them the belief that you don't believe in them and you don't trust them. Much like the guy on the Chef Ramsay show. last night. His dad just kept every single thing he did. Did you do that? Did you do that? Did you do that? Did you do that? It's like his
Even Ramsey
confidence was
asked
shot.
him, "When's the last time you told your son you loved him?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Never." The dad, 72 years old, never. And even then had a hard time, which could be from his own, the way he was
Yeah.
parented, right? Maybe
Yeah.
that's, and he was saying, "I don't want my kids to experience the way I was parented," and stuff like that. But,
Yeah.
I mean, and our dynamic is even more different because our kids grew up in two different households that parent very differently from one another. So it's like, there's always a challenge even when they come to our house and then they go back there and
Yeah.
then they're back and forth, and that's so confusing for kids, like
it's really hard for them. It's really hard.
and I think for us, like, we've just tried to stay as transparent as possible, as open with them as possible, so that when they do come here, they feel like they're not, under attack. We're
Yeah.
just like, "Hey, you're not under attack. Just be real, just
Yeah.
be real with us, because that's
Yeah,
how we are
that's
with
how
you."
we are, yep. That transparency thing is vital
Yeah, it is.
to building trust.
Yeah, it is.
I don't have to be my kid's hero.
Yeah.
I think parents go about thinking that they have to have every answer to every question. They have to have every solution to every challenge. You don't. One of the quickest way to build trust with your kids is to actually show them that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
Is to show them that you are capable of making mistakes.
You're human.
Is to show them that you are human. Because kids naturally look at their parents as this colossal, gigantic person that knows every single thing. And from that perspective, they think you are the world.
The image of perfection.
Right. And then they strive to achieve that same perception that they have of you, which we all know isn't true. So the quicker you can show the kids that you don't have the answers for everything, you do get hurt, you do feel, it brings them closer to you, and it expands the circle of trust that you can build with them. So stop trying to be your kid hero. Just stop. Just be yourself. Let them know that you do make mistakes too.
So is there anything in your parenting history, now that you've had at least 24 and a half years of parenting under your belt, is there any time in your parenting history that you've done something where you've looked back, whether it was a reprimand or, whatever, where you've looked back and gone like, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or you kind of regretted it a little bit, but you still kind of rolled with it, but you still were like, I won't do that again. That's not how I'm going to parent again.
No.
No? Wow.
And this is going to sound really, really like I'm just master parent and something like that.
Oh.
I am absolutely not. I just had a strategy, and I knew how I wanted to execute that strategy. And I also knew that I didn't want to be shackled by the desire to be loved, like, or be my kid's friend.
Which is a really common mistake, right? Is
It's
like,
a
I want to
problem.
be their friend.
Yes. And because I freed myself from that, it allowed me to be very transparent and very open with them.
And probably more practical about your decisions
Yes.
too, not so emotional.
What did help me though, when the first kid was born, I think, or the second one was born, I was in the military. I walked into the office, and my supervisor was a black woman. She was a mom also. And I said to her, I am concerned that my kids are afraid of me, that they will be afraid of me. And she looked me right in the eye and she goes, "Philip, that's not fear, that is respect. Don't stop doing what is it you are doing." And she is absolutely right. And bear in mind that you want, and this is what I think parents don't think of, you won't see the results of your previous actions for decades.
Yeah.
So it requires a bit of patience and trust in what you are doing.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, you're never sure that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You are absolutely never sure. What you are sure of, though, are the type of human beings you want to raise, and you feel blessed and privileged to have been given the task of raising another human being.
Yeah.
Because, as you have said, it is a very rare thing that a lot of folks don't get to do, but most of us still take for granted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, it's one of those, like, when you see people who are just fed up with their kids or not paying attention to them, it drives me crazy when I see that parents, like, I remember not long ago I was walking the dog and I saw this dad out on the grass with his kids, and he was honest, he was so focused on what was going on his phone, and his kids were running around playing and, you know, this and that, and running out into the street, and, like, he just wasn't paying attention. And I know, like, that's life, right? Like, you're on your phone doing something, your kids are going to be playing. Like, that's fine. It's fine. It's just these little moments that I see in someone's life that I'm like, man, like, I'd be rolling on the ground with them, playing, like, just have a good time, watching them smile. You don't know what you have until you weren't given the opportunity to have it, you know? And then you're like, holy crap, like, I wouldn't ever give this up for the world, you know? And I remember, like, one of the things that have heard mothers say most often is, like, I never knew a love like this until I looked into my baby's eyes. And, you know, you see yourself in them. Like, you see your mannerisms, you see your facial expressions, like all these things. And, you know, people just don't really, when they're given that opportunity, it's given to them and they don't have to work for it. They take those things for granted, you know? They don't look at their kids with the depth of what they would if they weren't given that opportunity, you know?
Yeah, wow, yeah. People do need to recognize how fortunate they are to be able to say, I am a parent.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, totally. But as a step parent, I am so grateful for it. Yeah. I mean, I know that, you know, when you are trying to find a partner, you know, even having a second marriage, essentially, you know, it's you're a little older at that point, or we were a little bit older, so it's like, you know, dating people with kids and, like, how does that work? And I think that could even be we could probably have an episode on that, because that's you know, a topic that I'm hearing a lot of my friends who are going through this kind of single life in their 40s and 50s, and, you know, okay, well, hopefully by then the kids are kind of grown up a little bit, so it's a little easier. But still, the dynamic is just different, you know, when new people are brought into the picture and things like that. And I've been really fortunate to have, you know, many experiences as a mother, you know, that even some other people don't get. So I'm really grateful for that, you know, for those experiences and those connections with our girls.
Cool. Today, the emphasis is on parenting style, which, by the way, personally, I'll be frank here, is downright stupid. Now it's gentle parenting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not advocating for the physical or verbal outright abuse of kids.
Yeah.
But even the good book says, don't spare the rod and spoil the child, because even she realizes that in order to raise disciplined kids, there are moments when you may have to lightly apply some sort of physical discipline.
I don't know if our kids would be like it. It was light.
Lightly. Parenting styles are an absolute waste of time. The second thing that's an absolute waste of time is reading those parenting books. Another absolute waste of time. Since parenting is an individual experience, parenting is also heavily influenced on your upbringing. Parenting is also heavily influenced in your environment, especially your social position, how much money you have, what type of, can you pay rent, where you can live. All these things makes it challenging to be a parent, and it does contribute to the challenges of being a parent. But it doesn't. It's not that hard. I'll be frank. It's not that hard. I think it's fascinating. I'm fascinated by it, if you can't tell that already. Any closing thoughts?
Oh, just be patient.
Yeah.
You know, patience is one of the things I think I've had to learn a lot of. And not just patience with them, but patience with myself, patience
Yeah.
with you, you know, just patient in general, like, and trying to see things from all perspectives, not just your own,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
Because sometimes kids, you know, their perspective is different, but it sometimes makes sense why they do the things they do and say the things they
Yeah.
say is because their perspective is so different than we might have even thought it was, you know. So,
Yep.
yeah.
For me, it's know the type of kids you want to be, you want to raise. That will affect the type of parents you will be. And be conscious of your upbringing. Rely on your upbringing or your childhood a lot to inform your parental choices because your kids have the same curiosity today as you had, say, 40 years ago. Build trust with your kids by letting them know that you don't know everything. You don't have all the answers. It's sort of like making yourself vulnerable. This allows them to this draws them closer to you because you are transparent and because they actually see you as a human instead of this gigantic statue that they look up to and you go like, eh. So, and you need to be a transitioning parent. You know, you can't be the same parent that raised the kid from 3 years old to 26 or 23 years old. Your role as a parent should mature as your kid mature. And finally, you have to respect them. You have to respect that they will make choices that you don't agree with. They will speak in ways that you don't agree with, but as adults, you have to respect them. And I guess the overall goal of a parent, I think, is to create a safe environment for your kids and placed within that environment everything you believe they will need to be a successful person. And of course, success is defined differently by everybody. And you give them the advantages, you let them know the advantages and disadvantages of using the things you have placed in that safe space for them. Having, having taught them the correct lessons, you trust that they will make the right choice. And then you step back and see what they do. You know, if they need your help, you step in and you help them. If they don't need your help, you go, "Oh, okay." If they make a bad choice, you go, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with that one this time. You know, I'm not coming to hold your hand here. No. But I think that's the end of our episode 2, parenting.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And this is Human Frequency. Our goal here is to do one podcast every week, and just talk about different topics: life, love, relationships, philosophy, travel, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Just our experiences, our wavelength, our frequency that we're on
Yeah.
here.
So if you guys have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below. If you guys want us to cover a particular topic, again, leave it in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and family. We're trying to grow this channel and get this information out to as much people as possible. Until the next time, this is Human Frequency. You guys
See you
have a good
later.
day.